After I have started experiencing problems in the main lines arising after bishop e2, knight d4, I started looking for something else. I didn't like that black had to be very careful playing all the main only moves in order only to make a draw. Of course, the draw is a good result, but sometimes you are in the situation when you have to play for a win. And it was impossible when playing the main lines exchanging on d4. And this is what I didn't like. I spent half a year past before I found out a new and convincing way for black to play for the equality but keeping pieces on the board. And this is the position. It arises on our board after the moves e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, exchange on d4, knight d4, g6, c4, knight f6, knight c3, d6, bishop e2, and bishop g7 now. It is a completely normal setup for black, as we can see later. The difference is that the pieces are being kept on the board. And here, white has an additional move at his disposal, the move knight c2. But we will not look at it here because it was already studied by us in the previous chapters when white plays knight c2 earlier. So if you look, you can remember it. The main move in the position is bishop e3, castle, and after castle I took and exchanged on d4. The idea behind this move is that black has to exchange first on d4 and only later play bishop d7. If, for example, black plays bishop d7 now, then here white has the move knight c2, and black is in problems already because the knight on f6 is weak. The best place of this knight is on c5, but how to transfer it when the bishop already occupies the d7 square? So black has to lose the time playing bishop d7, e6, and later knight d7. So this is the difference. After bishop d7, also knight d3 is possible when white is also slightly better. So the exchange first on d4 is important, and early this exchange black plays bishop d7 now. Queen d2, bishop c6, and here white played bishop d3. This was a quite fashionable move until this game, and people believed that it is the way for white to play for the advantage because of the possible attacking chances on the king side. When preparing for this game, and also earlier, I found some additional extra defensive possibilities for black, and I was able to use in this game against Handucci, played at the second Vacancy tournament in 2004. Please note that another move instead of bishop d3 is f3, and we will look at this move later in one of the following games. But the game continued. Bishop d3, a5. This is an important move for some reason, limiting the possible advance of the pawn b2 to b4. It is possible to play knight d7 immediately, but better to wait with this move and first fix the pawn structure of white on the king side. As you can see from this game, what is black doing in this game is quite typical, and we've already seen black playing a7, a5, a4 in some of the previous games, including my game against Judith Polgar. So basically all the ideas are the same, no matter which line the system appears. So if you know very well the basic ideas and principles, you can very easily and without much problem learn the Marozzi system and implement all that you are learning right now in your tournament practice. So I played a5 here. Rook a, e1, a4. The idea behind this move is that I want white to play knight d5. And when white plays knight d5, black gets late an additional possibility of exchange to d5, simplifying the position and also leaving white with a bad bishop on d3. Now I play knight d7, try to exchange the black squared bishops. As you already know, the exchange of these bishops is in black's favor. Here black played rook e3. Another move at 4 was possible here. The position remains complex, but with equal chances. Rook e3, and after rook e3, he played e5. Another type of the position is on board now. After the dark squared bishops have been exchanged, there is a weakness in white camp, the square d4. And there were a lot of games by me and by other players when the knight goes through d7 to c5, then on to e6 and on d4. And when the knight is there, it is very difficult for white to eliminate it. And the weakness of the pawn d6 here is not so vulnerable, and it is extremely difficult for white to exploit it. When I played e5, probably the best option for white is not to go for the attack, but to play knight c3, after which knight c5 is completely normal with equal chances, or to play bishop e2, allowing black to exchange on d5, and after queen d5, knight c5, rook d1, rook a6, the position is equal. Black has nothing to worry about. But white decided to go for the attack and played rook h3, and this move was met by h5. Here white played knight e3. He decided that the time has come, but I think it is too direct, and white had already to understand that their efforts to organize the attack on the king side have left him nothing special, and the best way was to retreat back with a knight on c3 and playing for equality. But after knight e3, knight c5, white already has some problems, because the rook on h3 is being separated from the main camp, and also the pawn on e4 has been attacked. So if someone has already said A, then he has to say B. So white goes ahead with the attack and plays f4, sacrificing the pawn. f3 is possible, but then look at the position of the rook on h3. It can never return into play. The sacrifice on h5 is not possible, because black takes the rook on h5, and after knight f5 check, king g8, queen h6, black has knight d6 at his disposal, followed by then queen g5 move. So after f4, I took the pawn on e4, and here again white continued the attack, now sacrificing the piece by the means of f5. Exchange on e4 was better when after bishop e4, knight e4, queen d4, f5, queen b7, rook f7, queen d5, exchange on e4, rook e4. Black is slightly better. The knight on e4 is too strong, the pawn on b2 is weak, and the rook on h3 is separated from the rest of the camp. But f5 was an interesting move. I took on d3, and white gave check on f6. Here I had to spend some time choosing the best square for the king to move from the check. And I made a mistake. I played king h8. Black would have received the position with big winning chances after king g8, after which there is nothing better for white than to play knight d5, knight f4, take on e4 with the rook, e4, queen e4, queen a5. And after queen e4, black is able to defend from all mating threats by queen d2. He has an Nx3 exchange, but nevertheless his task is still not easy to convert the material advantage into a full point. In the game, I played king h7, and this move allowed my opponent to create some attacking chances and eventually to get the chances for a draw. The only move after king h7 is knight g4. I have to give the check on b6, otherwise it is a draw after rook f4, knight f4, rook f4, exchange on e4, queen b6, king h1, and this is a draw by the perpetual check. Black cannot win here. So I gave the check on b6, the king moved to hn, and I played bishop g2 check. The correct for my opponent was to take with the queen, and after he played knight f4, he took it with the knight, with the rook, and after e4, he mixed a very good chance to make a draw. Well, of course it was not easy to find, but knight e5 was the only move in the position. When black plays queen d4, rook h5, king g8, rook h8, exactly this move was missed by my opponent. King h8, queen h3, king g8, and queen h6. And there is no way for black to win the pawn f6, and he has to give the perpetual check. So that would have been an end to this exciting and interesting game. But my opponent made a mistake and played rook h5 immediately. But this move loses because there is no perpetual check. If instead of knight e3 he plays queen f4, then I can bring not only the queen but also the rook for the defense, protecting myself from all checks. Black is winning. The game continued knight e3, and after queen b2, my opponent resigned. That was my first game with this new line, successfully tried in vacancy. It is also a very good illustrative game, which shows the nice defending possibilities of black in this type of the position when white goes directly for a mate. How many resources there are in black position and how difficult for white to go through.